at its core, effective selling is relationship driven. Committing yourself to a vision into which the customer can buy. Consultative sales process. Like I said, it started out in the early 80s in sales, and the consultative sales process is relatively new at the time. I'm sure that you sales folks have had the chance to go through this, so I'm not going to spend an awful lot of time in just describing this other than to say that you first qualify, you first see if your product even meets the needs. Then you profile, you understand, you talk to who's involved in the process, who's on the team, who are decision makers, and how will they influence or negatively influence the purchase decision. Discovery is understanding the situation. What do they need? What do they have? What do they need? You propose something. You go in with your price book and you price things out, and you give them a proposition. You help them evaluate. You do a demonstration of the equipment, its features, its functions, and then close. You do a technical close. You do a sales close. And again, sales engineers as opposed to salespersons. Sometimes sales engineers are simply there to support the close by understanding the technical aspects of the application. These are the general steps, and then support and grow. These are the general steps that sales engineers, salespersons, technical salespeople have learned over the years and used with a fair amount of success. It's intended more to be interactive and communicative than traditional hard sell techniques. Over the years, however, we found that this process became more manipulative than it's supposed to. We had salespeople out there, technical salespeople out there, who were selling to the process. And again, being engineers, they like to do that. Sell to the process instead of selling to the relationship with the customer. Understanding the customer is something that we needed to be able to do. We were catering. I mean, we all learned that. We all learned personality types, and we have to deal with personality types, and who drivers and amiables and all those sorts of things. So we started selling to those things, as opposed to understanding that every personality type has the same need, the same motivators. They need somebody to help them come up with the right solution for their product. Not manipulate their personality type, but to understand why they are doing what they're doing. Get people to embrace what your organization is bringing to them. Over the years, as a variant of the consultative sales processes, what we started to do we found a process that allowed us to be more successful, making technical salespeople close at a higher rate, sell at a higher rate, retain profitable repeat customers, and avoid the poaching of competitive forces. Based on more relationship building, team building, and partnership involvement, as well as more attention to the specific, customer-specific value proposition. And again, that's an important thing to understand. What is the value, not monetarily, what is the value that the customer gets out of the solution that you bring to the table? Not only are those effective, useful for effective sales, they are, and we'll talk about this before we wrap up. I understand this is a technical sales program and trying to do that. These concepts are important to your entire organization. What we'll be talking about today is effective in selling, is effective throughout your organization. So those of you who are sitting back, you're saying you're engineers, you're going, that's fine. We're talking about sales. We're going to talk about concepts to make your company and your department better than what you started out with. The sales leadership process, again, very similar to what we talked about before, although we're going to talk in a little more depth about the relationship, the personalities involved in it. The 7 steps are station, situation, diagnose and develop, credibility, vision, influence, and responsibility. And again, you'll see that these aren't totally different than what we talked about before, but the context behind those is significantly different. Situation. The situation is the first step. We make contact and we identify the individuals involved. their titles, their position, their company, persons involved in the buying decisions and influences. Last night, I took the opportunity to meet the people at my table, not because I just wanted to hang with them, but because I needed to understand who they were and what they did. Same thing. My interest in asking, who you work for, manufacturers, vendors, that's important to me, understanding who you are, and we'll see that as we go forward. Persons involved in buying decisions. We are establishing the status of the entities. We understand, where they rank, what are the positions within the company. There's no personal relationship here. You and I don't know each other. There's no personal relationship here. There's no influence. Station is a terrible. If I push the button, there are no personal relationships here. Only ambiguous status within the within our group here. However, if we have appropriate status, it gives us the opportunity to go to the next situation, or to the next step, which is situation. Situation requires some of the most valuable tools within selling leadership or within any kind of sales process. It's the ability to listen, to communicate effectively, and interactive, empathic listening. As mundane and rudimentary as listening seems to be, the fact of the matter is this is a skill that you have to train over the years. You have to train yourself to be a professional listener. Over the years, you go through a lot of things, you hear a lot of things, but the fact of the matter is, what you need to do is be able to understand. You need to be able to listen what's being said, what the intent of what's being said is, and as an effective salesman, you will over the years learn how to listen. Open-ended questions, looking for vision, the vision of the value of the potential that the potential customer desires. Engage the customer in the conversation, not yours. This is the first step that will likely end your conversation with the customer. If you stop listening before he's done talking, if you start talking before he's heard, they'll disengage. Despite all the hard work of all the marketing professionals out there who make four-color brochures, the customer doesn't care about it just yet. Unfortunately, there is a lot of ineffective sales guys out there who will do that. They're sales engineers. They like specifications. They like to tell you everything they know about what's on that piece of paper. The customer doesn't care what you. The customer doesn't care what you know until he knows how much you care. Until you understand his situation, it doesn't matter what's on that four-color brochure, and it becomes a security blanket for the people who are trying to get through the process, get through the steps. So you give me an order, and I understand that. I understand that there are needs out there to be met on yours. The toaster breaks. You got to go get another one. There are reasons why you want to be able to sell stuff. The kids need new shoes. Yeah, you need to put food on the table. There are lots of reasons out there, but stop. Stop talking until they're done listening. Sales expert Ron Carr uses the term puke. The term puke stands for people who utter knowledge about everything. Don't puke on your customers. Don't tell them everything you know about your product until you know what their situation is. When you puke, you make a big mess, and people try to avoid you. Listen and learn from everyone involved in the current situation and the desired situation. You are here to listen. Become a good listener. Focus on the speaker. Don't look to impress anybody. Look to be impressed. And as fellow Texan and former president LBJ is wont to say, you ain't learning nothing if you're doing all the talking. All right, diagnose and develop. This is the wheelhouse for technical salespeople, for engineers who are out there doing a sales job. This is your wheelhouse. This is what you do. All right, this is why you got into it. This is the ability to take your technical acumen and apply the products, create solutions. It's time for you and your team to do some problem solving. Now, when I'm talking about team, I'm not talking about marketing people. I'm talking about engineering staff. I'm talking about management staff. And by the way, I'm talking about your customer. Your customer is involved in this team. Feedback, and again, process being an engineer, feedback from the customer as to where you're going, what you're thinking, and what you're doing is important to make sure that you have the right solution at the end of the day. Take the technical needs of the customer and solve a problem. You're dedicated to creating the best solution that the team can devise for the desired outcome to satisfy the customer. Every customer makes decisions based on their own reality. The team must develop the best solution that you can create to facilitate that desired reality. Your team develops a solution of high value to the customer. You're there to create the best solution for the customer, and I'm not suggesting that you have ulterior motives, that we ignore the profitability of your company. That's not the case at all. But I will tell you that if you create a solution that has value to the customer, if it's a valued outcome, the pricing becomes less burdensome. Credibility. You've translated the customer's needs into a legitimate, well-considered solution that meets their expectations for a solution and for a vision. You have shown that you and your team are dedicated to the needs of the customer. You have developed a sense of integrity, high purpose, and strong character that comes from meeting your customer's needs rather than your own. You have established trust and integrity and credibility with your prospect. Customers want to work with people that are motivated by helping them. Because you have put the customer first, and you have developed a solution that meets their needs, not yours, you have credibility and integrity, and those that have very high influence value. Vision. Vision and value are almost synonymous at this point. Your vision, your team's vision, is to create value for the customer, create a solution for the customer, create something that gives him or her a sense of value in the solution. And again, value is neither price nor monetary. It has everything to do with the perceived outcome of the solution as opposed to price or money. It is a perceived and actual desired outcome that the customer demands, i.e. high capacity, minimal downtime, even easy serviceability, simplicity of use, systemic integration, all of those sorts of things that you can sell that go beyond just having a pieces part that goes in. Adding value to your customer is the vision that you and your team have. The next step is influence. You've established a well-founded relationship that is built on trust, integrity, and value. You have developed a viable, well-considered solution based on your understanding for the desired outcome voiced by the customer. you are likely to have earned influence over the customer. If you have completed all of these steps, if you have built one on top of the other, you have influence over the customer because you have helped the customer. Influence is neither power nor control, but rather the ability to affect somebody's decisions and actions based on strong interpersonal relationship and trust. Your relationship, communication, credibility, and vision will compel your customer to buy into your solution. I can't guarantee you they will buy because there are external factors sometimes. They don't have the money. They don't have the time. But they are compelled to buy into your solution. We learned as salespeople a long time ago that customers don't like to be sold; they love to buy. And two, you can determine who buys from you. You can't determine when they buy from you. But you can affect that relationship to the point where they will buy from you, given the proper motivation. And then the last step is responsibility and service. Responsibility. Okay, now the easy work's done. Now the hard work comes. Responsibility to the customer for the vision that you planted in their brains. The responsibility for the influence that you had over them to make a decision. When it comes right down to it, delivery dates and delivering equipment is pretty standard, pretty basic. That's fall off the chair kind of a thing. You know what you're supposed to be doing. You do it repeatedly. Good customers, good companies do that. Taking orders, getting stuff out, that's the easy part. The responsibility that you have going forward, the responsibility that you have to the customer to serve them, to talk to them, is equally important. We had a discussion last night at the table. They sold something to a customer. Okay, the order was closed. We're coming to perform that. We'll be there at a certain time. There was a problem. I'm not throwing anybody under the table or under the bus. But I'm saying there's a problem when they went to deliver because the customer was not ready. They didn't understand. They didn't comprehend. They didn't communicate very well. At the end of when they showed up to do the work, it didn't happen. Because, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus because they're not even here, but I'm saying that the responsibility lies with each of us, lies with the salesperson to be able to communicate effectively. There was a lack of communication between the distributor and the customer as to what was supposed to happen before we got there. And again, it all turned out fine, but at the same time, you have to be able to communicate that because you risk losing integrity, you risk losing credibility if things don't turn out the way the customer expects them to turn out. Additionally, the final step, to be able to do this, the rest of that story is if you communicate well, if you become a partner, if you become a resource to your customers, if you're in there doing what you're supposed to be doing, if you're in there communicating with them on a regular basis, you will become a resource to the customer. Let me tell you about a man, the best rep that I've ever worked with, Stephen G. Cherry. Back at the factory, we called him Stephen G. for God Cherry. Steve was very good. He had the advantage, I suppose, of working for the manufacturer to begin with. But once he got out into the market, he became very good. And not because Steve was particularly talented or Steve was particularly smart, but Steve worked with his customers. Anytime I went in there with Steve, he was talking to his customers. He'd be walking, honest to goodness, he'd be walking down the hallway, and people would say, "Hey, Steve, here. I got a problem. Can you help me?" As a salesperson, that's sweet music. I have a problem. The reason they did this is because they saw him all the time. He delivered on his promises. People came to him and offered him opportunities to sell just because he took responsibility and service seriously. By becoming a resource for your customer, you can start projects at the development and diagnosis standpoint. It shortens the time frame as well. All right. Selling leadership advantages. Selling leadership takes the traditional consultative selling process and augments it with relationship, team building, as well as concepts of integrity, vision to be adhered to by the company, and the addition to value that the customer finds in the proposed solution. As we've discussed, your industry is extremely non-standard. The applications are extremely non-standard. This is a complex, systemic, non-standard industry, and the professional